What's up, guys? It's Chris with Still Vivid. Been feeling a little under the weather the last few days, but I still kind of wanted to make some content. So I think I'm going to talk about the album SAGA and basically how this all kind of got started for me. This whole making an album, trying to do something musically and put it out, professionally to the world. We can basically take it back to when I was about 21 years old. Grew up in Eugene, Oregon. I was 21 years old and I was working as a graveyard manager at a grocery store there called Market of Choice off 29th and Willamette. I basically worked my way to the manager position, but it sucked. I hated it. I remember I was only making, it was like $9 and something an hour. And a guy had just gotten hired there. We were having lunch one night, and I can't remember how the topic got brought up, but he was saying he was making like $12 an hour or something like that. And I'm like, that can't be true, dude, because like I'm the manager. And I remember when I brought that up to them, like a week or so later, I get handed a check, and it basically shows that I got a pay raise, and it was like 30 cents or something like that. And at that moment, I was pretty deflated. Here I am, 21 years old. I didn't really have much to show for myself. And I've always felt that I needed to do something, or I guess my purpose in life is large. It's larger than others, That could be an ego thing, or it could be any number of things, but I always felt like I was supposed to do something great, And not making that much money working graveyard shift, which kind of does a number on you sleep-wise. And for me, I found out that that's a very important thing for my overall mental health is good sleep. So I had just gotten through a lease, or a lease for a year, living with some friends, and it wasn't like a smooth transition into another place or anything like that. We all kind of, I guess, went our separate ways there for a minute, but we were still trying to figure out, like, hey, what's the next place we're going to be at, sort of thing. And I'm kind of in this limbo area in my life. And I was living with my uncle at the time. He basically was like, why don't you just come live with me? He's like, I'm doing a lot of traveling recently and for work, and it'd be nice to have somebody look after the place. And so it was a no-brainer for me. Not only was my uncle like one of my best friends, but his place was always just immaculate and just nice to be in. He always felt relaxed. So one day we're having a conversation on his back patio. He would have a cigarette and have his coffee, and he's just getting up. And I'm, at this point, usually I've worked my shift, I've hit the gym, and I'm getting ready to like go to sleep, And I just wasn't in a great headspace, I was very bothered. And he could tell, and he asked me, what was going on in my life, and I explained to him everything. And the one thing he told me, and it literally like launched like the trajectory of my whole life after that. Um, I'm telling him all this stuff, and he goes, "Have you ever thought that maybe you're waiting for something to happen instead of making something happen?" Whoa, what? Yeah, okay. You're right. I gotta make something happen. If I want anything to happen, I gotta make it, right? So I basically was like, okay, well, what is it? What am I gonna do? And for some reason, the military had popped up in my head. And a buddy of mine, actually, that had worked with me at the Market of Choice, he had I think he was in tech school, if not graduated tech school at this time in the Air Force. So I asked him about it, and he had nothing but great things to say. So one day after, I go to the recruiter's office in the morning. It was very hard to get a hold of the Air Force recruiters, man. The other branches would be in their office, because I would get off at like 7, and if I went and hit the gym, maybe I'd get there about 9, and sometimes they wouldn't even be in by then, you know. But yeah, I had to dodge the other branches just to talk to the Air Force. But yeah, so I'm talking to the recruiter one morning when I finally get in there, and it's basically like, you don't got to sell me nothing. I'm already like sold. I just kind of want to know the logistics, and how is this all going to work? And it felt like everything went great. And it was like, all right, I'm doing this next thing, And he hands me the packet of everything I need to fill out, and we go to shake each other's hand, and I put my left hand on the table, shake his hand, and he goes, "Oh man, nice tats." I used to have tattoos on my knuckles on my left hand. They're just little music notes, right? Like nothing crazy. And he goes, "Oh man, you can't get in now." And it crushed me, because he was serious, He didn't want to fill out that kind of paperwork and do all that kind of stuff for me. Who am I? Probably just gonna waste his time. There's this kid with tattoos on his knuckles, Air Force wasn't hurting for people at the time, And it was like, okay, well, I guess there goes that idea, but it just felt so strongly that was what I was supposed to do. And my uncle was out of town, and I couldn't wait to like bring this up to him when he got back, And when he got back, I'm finally talking to him about it, and he basically was like, "Yeah, so I know a plastic surgeon that might be able to help you." All right. He goes, "But it costs money to set the consultation up, and it's going to cost money to do anything." I'm like, "Oh, okay, all right." I had nothing saved up, and that I tell him, I'm like, "Yeah, Uncle Ernie, man, I got nothing, dude," And he was like, "Oh, don't worry about it, man. The money you've been giving me for rent, I don't need it. So I put it in another account, and I was just going to give it to you whenever you moved out." What? It's one of the nicest things anybody's ever done for me in my whole life, from to date, even, And I was like, okay, so I guess I can make this happen, So I talked to we set up a consultation, and I'm telling the guy my story, and he said he could help me out. He asked how much money I had. Not much. I think I had, after paying the consultation, which was like $150, I had like $650 left that my uncle had saved up for me. And so he basically said, "Yeah, we can make that happen, but we're going to do everything in the office." and I won't put you out, but we'll do like an anesthetic at the wrist that should get the whole hand. All right, sounds good to me. And the day finally came, and it was very uncomfortable. Um, it was painful, that's for sure. But after each finger, because basically what he did was made a teardrop cut and cut out each tattoo, each little music note I had, and then cauterized it, and then sewed it up. So after each one, I just knew I was that much closer to my goal. I've always kind of been that way in general, like very intense, very goal-driven, goal-oriented type person. And that was what I saw. That's what I felt like I needed to do. So I didn't care about the pain, I'm just glad that I found a way to make this happen. And, my mom drove me to the appointment, and afterwards I asked if she wouldn't mind stopping by the recruiter's office. And, my hand was all wrapped up, but I walked in and I took the wrap off and I put my hand on Sergeant Jackson's desk. And he was like, "Holy shit, man. We'll get you out of here as soon as we can." Basically. And, there's other kids in there too. And of course, he's like, "This is the dedication we want to see." But, yeah, so there I was, 21, and I joined the Air Force. I wanted to do something medical, but my highest aptitude score on the ASVAB was mechanical. And he basically was like, "Yeah, Air Force ain't going to put you medical, man. They're going to find you a home in mechanical. And if you're wanting to get this started right away, we can make that happen. You just won't have a job going into basic training. We'll throw you in as open mechanical." Sounds good to me, And I started this journey. And yeah, 2011, I started that journey. And from that time until I was 28 in 2018, I have always written music. I've always, my dad played when I was a kid, played his guitar, the one that he gave me. And, I was really into sports mostly until I kind of got injured. And that was when I really picked up the guitar. And when I realized that my sports kind of career was virtually over with the shoulder injury that I had, the guitar took sports place, basically, as my goal, right? As the thing that kept me motivated. I was in some bands growing up and whatever else, nothing anybody's ever heard of. Always loved it. And I met my friend Matt along the way. He was a drummer at the time. He's actually the one that I've had produce the 2 albums, SAGA and Unfollowed. And we met way back in the day, maybe around 2006, something like that. But so music's always been a big part of my life, and I enjoyed making songs. And at one point I did have a guitar, and an interface and the ability to record while I was in the military, and some of those songs actually are on both of the albums. They were just kind of redone. If you were ever curious, you can look up Chris Hardesty on SoundCloud and you can hear all the original stuff. How I originally made it, and then it got turned into songs that were on the album. But basically, SAGA started, I guess, the story from my life from about 2011 to 2018. And there was a lot of things that happened in there, especially towards the end of that time period, that really did a number on me mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And I wanted to kind of tell my story, and I didn't really know how. And if I tried to type it out like for a book, it just didn't feel right. It didn't seem right, and one of the things in there, I was married from 2013 to 2018. And one of the things there towards the end, I didn't have a guitar. I had sold the one that I had to help pay for some of her medical stuff. And didn't have a guitar, didn't have my computer, couldn't make anything, couldn't record anything. Was kind of tired of everything. And when our marriage basically dissolved in the summer of 2018, I was up in West Seattle. And the first thing I told myself was, all right, you're going to get a guitar, you're going to get a computer, you're going to get an interface, and you're going to start recording again. And I did exactly that. I bought this guitar right here. It's a Paul Reed Smith 7-string. I've upgraded over the years. I put locking tuners on it. I don't know the brand that I used. I put bare knuckle pickups in it, the bare knuckle Juggernaut. I put that set in there. I put a new bridge on it. Made everything black to go with the black cherry. You can tell it's really dirty right now. It needs to get restrung. But I bought this guitar. At the time, I was working at the University of Washington, and they had a thing called surplus. I don't know if they still do or not. But you could get things the university was getting rid of for a good price. So I bought a computer, a desktop computer, the monitor, everything, like $200. And then I got Line 6 UX2 interface. That's actually what I still use to this day. I've got a couple Focusrite Scarletts, but I don't know. I haven't been able to get it set up right. There's a lot of latency problems, and I don't care. I mean, the Line 6 has done me great for years. I've used the UX2 since 2009, I would say. Always had, it's very easy to use. I like it. Yeah, so I bought everything I needed, and I began this journey through myself, through my issues, through issues I had to face, through success, heartache. I I put everything into a piece of music to try and tell a story. And the whole album is a story. Of course, it's a story of a Viking. You know, if you see the album art, is it's a Viking. I only chose that because when I was working at the university, I was down getting some materials, and this guy, Casey, I'm filling out the form, and he's typing on the computer, and he goes, "Oh, dude, you know your last name is Norse Viking, and it means strong, brave wolf?" I was like, "No, but that sounds pretty sick, you know?" And he's like, "Yeah, check it out." And he like showed me. And afterwards, I kind of looked it up, and Hardesty comes from Hardolfski, which means exactly that, strong, brave wolf. And so I thought, well, maybe there's something to that for me. Maybe I need to become that, you know? Because at this point, I was already kind of battle tested in life, but it was kind of a make or break time period for me. And the thing about working through things that keep you from being in a good mental state, one of the things they don't really tell you, it's like, oh, talk to a counselor or whatever else, check, but you don't really hear like, this is how things usually go. And things get worse before they get better, because some of the things that you haven't accepted yet, and the reason why you haven't accepted it is because it's hard and it sucks and it makes you feel sick, and once you start diving into all of that stuff, everything gets worse. And you can find yourself in a bad spot, I found myself in a very bad spot. And I needed to do things for myself, finally. I started taking care of myself. I had gotten a dog at the time. His name's Ragnar. Yes, it's from the show Vikings. I watched that a few times when I was writing and trying to create this album. Read a lot of Viking books. I've even read, the Poetic Edda, the Prose Edda, the Saga of the Volsungs. I tried to immerse myself in that to create a viable, believable Viking kind of character and story. So I told my friend Matt, I said, "Hey man, I'm going to make an album, and I'm going to pay you to produce it. And I want like your best work." I want our best work, And so we started the summer of 2018. And it took a long time, it was our first one, and there's 11 songs, and trying to finance all of that yourself is difficult, it's costly. So it took a while. We finally had released that album in 2023, I believe. June something. And I can remember a sense of like feeling like, now what, right? Now what am I gonna do? Because that was my whole motivation for all that time. I didn't care how many hours I had to work, what I had to do, whatever. Um, I just knew that if those things happened, that I was supposed to create this music, right? Like if the financial part just happens, in my life, if that just falls into my lap from what I have to do, then it's meant to be that I'm supposed to create this and put this out there. So a lot of the stuff that I do, Saga, it it's good musically. I think the vocals are terrible. I I don't know what I'm doing. Absolutely, you could tell. Um, but that's kind of all part of it, when I was done with it, I remember one day listening to it all and just being like, that's my best. And at this time, I've perfected my craft a little bit more. I invested in trying to learn how to play faster, better sounding guitar solos, good rhythm guitar, and I was also practicing singing and the screaming aspect, and so yeah, it was a stepping stone, um, but I guess it also kind of goes into it being the saga, of this character. Basically, it's a Viking character kind of growing from a boy to a man in a Viking world, in Viking terms. And along the way, confrontation happens. And, you give it your all. In every confrontation, you don't back down. You actually wish the other guy will win, because then you will go to Valhalla. Right? That's the mindset. It's the mindset you have to have. And I kind of started to adopt it a little bit. I think I still do. It helped me become a man. It helped me process all of those things in my life. Things that I caused myself and things that were done to me. But yeah, Saga is a story. It's my story. And if you can find the album on any major platform. You can watch the full album stream on YouTube, and you have access to the lyrics and stuff there. Um, but yeah, without Saga, there wouldn't be an Unfollowed, which I feel is a tremendously better EP, better album than Saga overall, from my end and also from Matt's. Extremely proud of it. And from those two things, it's like I just kind of felt like kind of sharing that, if you make music and if that's kind of your outlet, whatever your outlet is, you have to follow through with it. You have to invest in it. Because without the investment and sacrifice you don't get to the goal that you need to get to. You know, in a world right now where everybody's pretty divided about pretty much everything, you know, especially here in the States, but everywhere, you got to work on yourself. And a part of being a good man, you know, you don't ever want to back away from any confrontation that you feel is necessary. And but at the same time, you have to understand and be able to differentiate when confrontation is not needed. You know, even Odin in the Havamal says you don't want to argue with a fool. That's something that's in the Bible as well, I'm pretty sure. If we all kind of just start working on ourselves and trying to get over the things that we're replacing, like, and what I mean by that is the reason you feel so strongly about what's in front of you is because you haven't dealt with everything that's behind you. Because a lot of the times, what's in front of you isn't as big of a deal as you're making it. It shouldn't make you feel the way that you're feeling. You should be able to have a dialogue with somebody and opinions be different without freaking out, you know, and getting really intense. You're feeling all that intensity from things that have happened to you before. Now, don't get me wrong, it might be an injustice and it might be something that should get somebody upset, right? But you should be reasonably upset. And if you don't feel reasonably upset and you feel beyond that, well, that's because you haven't really touched the surface yet on what really makes you feel intense. Like what really your struggle actually is. And it sucks. I can remember the first few times coming to grips with who I was as a person, how I would act about things, how I reacted about things. It's embarrassing. It made me feel nauseous, you know? And it's the things that you don't really want to look at or see or talk about that are really what are holding you down. I feel like everybody has a saga. Everybody has a story. And it's for a reason, because your story needs to be told. Whether you're an artist or you can actually write, or you know, you want to create something with it, you got to tell the world about it. And we need more stories. We need more things to look up to, things that motivate us. And it kind of gives your life a purpose. I feel like a lot of us are lacking purpose. And you can kind of just tell, you know. It's a crazy world out there now. I mean, I guess it's always been that way, but yeah. Tell your saga, tell your story. The world needs to hear it. I was kind of told that by many people. And the worst thing it can do is make you better. whether nobody else sees it, cares about it, feels as strongly as you about it. You told your story. You got it out there. You worked through your stuff. You made something beautiful out of it. That's the whole purpose of it. We're here on earth for a finite time. And I think we all need to be nicer to ourselves as individuals and to work through our things and tell our stories and just be human to each other. I know it's kind of a whole different thing than just describing what this album is and kind of what it means to me, but I was motivated when I made it. It helped motivate me. I put every ounce of pain and sorrow and happiness and success and everything into that story. And that's something that nobody can take away from me. So I'm going to leave on that note. We all have a story. We all have a saga. And the important thing is to tell it, but tell it reasonably. Tell it with precision. Tell it professionally, right? Break it down, look at it, dissect it, feel it, change it. But then put it out there for the world. The world would be a much better place, I think. Anyways, I'm Chris with Still Vivid. That's a little about SAGA. It's a little motivational talk for you. Take it easy.